And good morning and welcome to Skinny for Friday, August 21st. I'm Mitch Perry, the senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix, joined by Ray Rowe, editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing newspaper. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Mitch. A lot of energy in these studios today.
Yeah.
How are you still awake after Tuesday? Although you guys were crushing it at the Phoenix. I feel like you guys were in a flow.
Yeah. Obviously, a big week for the Florida Democrat-Republican primary. Not a primary for NPAs, only on certain elections, of course, they vote for. But we're going to talk all about it, of course. And it was a great show that the John Dingfelder just had right now. And we are hoping to speak with our friend Barry Edwards, political strategist. But we also have a couple candidates who are on the statewide ballot in November, including perhaps the most Googled person in America this week.
That's a good way.
Angie Nixon, of course, the state representative from Jacksonville, who was going to be on later in the program. And also in a few minutes, Jose Javier Rodriguez. He is the Democratic Attorney General candidate. He didn't run. Neither he nor James Uthmeyer, who's the Republican incumbent, were actually on the ballot because they're the only candidates running for those two seats that are Attorney General. So we'll be talking about that. So hopefully we will be getting Barry up, but I don't know if we see him right now. So anyway, let's talk about this race.
Let's do it.
Big race. Let's talk about the governor's race. Let's begin with that.
Sure.
Not a surprise that we have Byron Donalds versus David Jolly, but some interesting tidbits inside the numbers here.
Absolutely.
One of them being that Jay Collins actually won. Jay Collins lost. He was in second place, lost by 23 points. Okay, now we've got Barry actually on the phone here. So let's
We're going to patch Barry in.
Okay,
and of course, I think everybody had written Jay Collins off. And I don't know what Barry's going to say. I don't know what you think, Mitch, but I feel like he performed better than anybody thought he would.
Right, and he did really well. This is the question. He did really well in North Florida, which is the Panhandle area, rural counties. He won, 14, he won 16 counties. This is what I got wrong yesterday. He won 16 counties in North Florida, 17 overall. And what does that say about, the voters up there and how they feel about Byron Donalds? Now, Barry, are you with us on the phone here?
We got to let him on here, I think.
Wait, I just thought I just did here.
I'm here.
Okay.
There he is.
Barry, okay, hello?
Hey. So I think that Collins had a lot of independent expenditures whacking Byron, and they were effective to move him as the more conservative. But the most important factor for the North Florida counties, starting in Escambia, is the host of one of the I forget the military base of it now, one of the largest military bases in the country, and there's a mammoth. I mean, Matt Gaetz used to tell me that the only thing you have to talk about is veterans benefits in his congressional district, because that's all they care about. So you have this massive swath of veterans, and I think that the lieutenant governor, when he would go up to these events, he would take his leg off and plop it on the table. I thought it was a little distasteful, but
but effective apparently. So let's talk about this. David Jolly, I saw, who won. By the way, I thought he underperformed, getting 60%, 61%. We had Dana Marie Foster, who barely anybody knew of, who got 15%, which is really interesting. But anyway, David Jolly is the Democratic nominee. He was in Ybor City on Monday night, the night before the primary, gave a very triumphant speech. He talked about how Byron Donalds has spent $50 million already, which is true. And he said the race is tied. And my story I wrote, well, not really, at least in terms of the consensus of polls, which I always have to caveat with, like, if you believe them. But there was a poll that Hurt Research, that the Democratic Governors of Association, which is a Democratic group, did a poll that said for 600 Florida voters, likely voters, and found a couple of things in there. They said that the race was essentially tied. I think they showed Jolly up by a point. But it also showed that Donalds had higher negative ratings, 43% negative, 28% positive. Did you? I sent you over that poll. Did you?
I looked at that,
yeah.
And I believe Peter was one of my brother's students.
Peter Hart.
Peter Hart,
yeah.
At Tulane. But here's what you do. Pollsters are mostly legitimate, but some of us, which is my primary thing that I like to do now, know how to juke the stats. And this is how you juke the stats. The poll was done primary to the poll.
Right.
Okay, so by doing that, prior to the primary election.
The primary election, you mean, yeah.
You had no competitive race for the Democrats, where Jolly only got 60%
Yeah, 61%.
But the Republicans had a highly competitive race where you had Paul Renner spending millions of dollars, you had Collins spending millions of dollars, and you had obviously Byron spending millions of dollars. And with all of those factors in there, the negatives are going to be higher. And so you do it before the primary, and that's going to biased toward the non-competitive race, which was David Jolly. So that was intentionally done to juke the statistics.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, again, it's a poll, and these days I think a lot of them are frankly not worth their time talking about that. So we move on to the general, and we're going to get to some congressional races in the second half of the show, Barry, so don't want to get too deep into that now. And also talk about the Senate race, again, Angie Nixon versus... But let's just say this. Is that, okay, JJR is ready? Okay, so Barry, hold on right now. We're going to pivot now. We're going to talk to, okay, I'm getting confusing notes here from my engineer.
And I think one of the really important thing is, did you see the interview with David Jolly on Andrew Cuomo yesterday?
You mean Chris Cuomo?
Chris Cuomo, correct.
I did not see that. Tell us about that.
Okay, so Chris asked him about Angie Nixon, about their differences, and David said, I am not a Democratic Socialist. We have a big tent, but I disagree with her. I'm a capitalist. And he went down and went through every single item he could on how they were different and how they didn't agree on any basic policies. I thought it was a very big attempt by him to separate himself clearly from her campaign, because he's running as a centrist Democrat, and that he does not think that would be effective if he gets tagged with her. So I think you're going to find it very rare that they ever are together on the same stage.
Well, that is something interesting, because Ashley Moody, who I saw last night, the Republican senator, of course, who's running against Angie Nixon, there was a big event in Tampa last night with Byron Donalds, all the top candidates, Blaise Ngoli at CFO, Wilson Simpson for Agriculture Commissioner. I've got a story coming out hopefully soon on the Phoenix website about Ashley Moody blaming the media, actually, and we can get into that, about why somehow the media did not vet Angie Nixon, and therefore we have a socialist now running. How could this happen in the state of Florida? But also...
she got to pass the buck. I mean, I feel like Angie Nixon was very well covered by the media.
Right.
Especially with her transition to the DSA.
If you look at where her vote came, you may have been the one who wrote about Mitch, but she did not win because she was a Democratic Socialist. She won because she was an African American, and
a progressive.
Massive turnout in Orlando, the Orange County Central area, and the Duval area. You take those three areas.
Okay, hey, Bear, are you on Zoom right now too? But okay.
Did that come out?
Yeah. Why don't you turn off the phone and just talk on the computer now?
Okay.
Okay.
Barry, why are you here? Where are you, Barry? Normally you're in here yelling at me.
Okay. Can we hear you, Barry?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely. He's in London right now. Actually,
You're in
that's
London?
where he's at. So anyway, but anyway, so Ashley Moody, she actually said to the reporters last night, she says, the question I wanted to ask David Jolly is, are you going to endorse your colleague running for Senate? I mean, she definitely thinks that, what we saw last night, the Republicans, is they're basically saying Gwen Graham who? Gwen Graham is actually the official running mate of David Jolly, but they're absolutely tying Angie Nixon to being the running mate of David Jolly.
Correct. They think, the Republicans think that they can tie Angie Nixon, a Democratic Socialist, to the David,
right?
That he gets crushed by 8 or 9 points, because the legitimate polling that I've went through is Ashley Moody is probably 10 points ahead of Angie Nixon,
right?
But David Jolly is only 5 points behind Byron Donalds. That's a huge difference. So they want to they want to get that's something that you have. Say Donald Trump invaded another country with ground troops. That's something that could flip those 5 points. So that's too close to call. So they want to increase that margin by tying him to the Democratic Socialist.
So
they think that the Democratic Socialist then would not vote for David out of, if he has to distance himself, would then punish him by undervoting.
That's going to be a really interesting thing to watch the next couple of months. Now, before that, the RNC was already putting out these things about Jolly, that he's too far to the left. Let me just read you some lines that they've got here. Quote, hates Florida, wants to apologize to the world on behalf of Florida, has said, quote, I've moved pretty far left and I'm not running as a moderate. Again, I'm reading this off, folks. It's not what I'm saying. He says, supports sex change surgeries for kids, said Jesus would be proud of the bravery of the trans community, called on all Christians to love the transgender community as much as they love their own God, supports very aggressive gun control positions, which I know he does, said the Democratic Party is unified behind socialist Zoran Mandami, opposes deporting criminal illegal aliens. I don't know if that's accurate, actually. But anyway, they are.
I have not seen. And I've been a friend of David.
Yeah.
And I've supported David. I have not seen him say any of that stuff in reality. Is that true that he did say that stuff?
Well, no, I don't know. I know on the transgender issue, right? Donald's has been running an ad on that, and they're trying to go hard with him on that because he has had a bit of a nuanced position there. He has not come out. He's basically. I think he told me the other day he's waiting for the courts to decide on this issue about transgender youth having gender reassignment surgery, what are you going to call it? So and that is in the court. So by the way, it is the law now. State of Florida passed that a few years ago, of course. So he has not come out against those type of things. And so Donald's has really hammered him on that. And some, I guess it was their first big ads, right, in the last couple of weeks.
Right. He's trying to avoid them. My sense is he's trying to avoid those things rather than take a position on them.
Right. I mean, that's where they're seizing on that. Okay. So until we get to, okay, now we do. Okay. So Barry, hold on right now. Now we're going to bring on Democratic Attorney General candidate Jose Javier Rodriguez. JJR, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, how are you? It's great to be with you.
Hey, great to have you here on the Skinny here. So, of course, you were not on the ballot on Tuesday. Neither was your Republican opponent, James Uthmeyer, but you are now fully fledged here in the general election campaign. Let me ask you this, Senator Rodriguez, who, of course, if our listeners don't know, was a state senator in the Miami-Dade area for years in the legislature. One of the things, I think it's been since, 1998, Bob Butterworth was the last Democrat to be elected Attorney General in the state of Florida. There's obviously different reasons behind that. How are you going to be the first Democratic AG since then to win statewide here?
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me on. Jose Javier Rodriguez, your candidate for Florida Attorney General in November. There's only two choices, myself and James Uthmeyer. And my platform, and I speak with General Butterworth pretty frequently. It's actually one of the coolest things I do on the campaign trail. Bob Butterworth served as our Attorney General at a time when we really had a people's lawyer serving in the job of a people's lawyer, because it's a campaign slogan. I say I'm going to return the office to the people, but it's also the job description of the Attorney General to represent the people. And a lot of people can be forgiven here in Florida for maybe having the idea that the Attorney General is like somehow vaguely the attorney for the governor or the state government. That is not the job. The job is an advocate for the people. And I talk about restoring priorities to focusing on crime, costs, and corruption. And that is not a partisan agenda. People ask me, how does your message change when you're talking to different audiences? It doesn't change a word. I talk about restoring a focus on public safety and not this cruel, theater coming out of Tallahassee. Let's do the actual work of providing support to our cops and prosecutors when we're trying to keep kids safe, especially with these emerging threats online and in social networks. And when it comes to the other two C's of the three C's, crime, cost, corruption, the other two C's are costs and corruption. And I talk about going after the insurance companies on behalf of the people, going after utilities to prevent rate hikes and get money back for us. I talk about going after corporate landlords, enforcing the minimum wage, doing all those things that we used to do, that other states do, to level the playing field for people here in this state. And sometimes people ask me, well, why are you talking about their light bill, the rent, insurance? You're running for Attorney General. And the only way you could have that reaction is if you've lived in Florida for the last few decades, because we don't have an Attorney General who does that. In fact, we currently have the most corrupt Attorney General and the least independent Attorney General we have ever had. And so when I'm going around the state, that's what I'm talking about. I'm asking people for not just for their vote, but for their imagination, what we could once again have in the Attorney General's office. And so that's how I'm going to win. We're talking to all voters. At this point, I've been on the campaign trail well over 400 some days. I think 400 and maybe almost 430. And I've been everywhere from Key West to Pensacola. It's interesting because I live in the most expensive part of the state where we're really squeezed here in Miami. But I find that a lot of the issues that we have, people are hurting even more in other parts of the state. And so people really need relief. And that's what I'll bring as the next Attorney General.
Senator Rodriguez, Ray Roa here from Creative Loafing, Tampa Bay. We've reported a lot on your push to enforce the minimum wage, but I'm curious, with this 1.5 million voter disadvantage for Democrats here in the state of Florida, we all know that in these elections, the people from the parties, they come back home. So when you're talking to independent voters, how are you convincing them that you're going to be the right person and you're going to, change history as far as the Democrats go?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that's why I said for the same reason. I've been in the campaign for a very long time. When I said I've been going from Key West to Pensacola, that's not. I mean, I think Tampa Bay has been the place I've been the most, other than my own hometown here in South Florida, and. I'll come back to it. There's really a couple different core things. My opponent has a completely different trajectory and mission. My entire career has been helping people stand up to bullies in one way or another, right? Workers, low-income homeowners. As a lawyer, I've done that, fought that fight in the legislature, so much so that the utilities came to try to take me out in my reelection in 2020. And we talked about that last time I was on your show.
Yeah.
But in my opponent, he's so brazen and with his corruption that it's almost like I'm running against a mob lawyer, right? Because the calling card is how corrupt he is. He gets a $25,000 donation from some interest, followed shortly thereafter with official action from the Attorney General's office. And I'm not kidding. Folks can Google it, look it up. Developers in Miami, car dealers, Tesla, anybody who shows up, they get some kind of action from, he's for sale. My entire career has been fighting against that type of thing. And we need somebody who's not just going to serve whoever's got the biggest check. We've got plenty of that in Tallahassee. We need somebody who has a history of fighting exactly those interests that are making Florida so expensive and in many cases unlivable.
Yeah, Senator. Yeah, I'm sorry, Senator. I want to make sure to get another question here. We're talking to State Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez, former State Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez, who was the Democratic candidate for Attorney General, running against James Uthmeyer, the Republican incumbent. Another thing I want to ask you about James Uthmeyer, because he has really done a lot of unconventional things, it seems to me, following Florida government in the 26 years I've lived here in terms as an attorney general. He's gone after the NFL with this Rooney Rule. He actually weighed in on Major League Baseball recently when there was an incident in San Francisco with the Gay Pride Night event there and players having to wear a different cap. A lot of things outside of what you would think a Florida Attorney General has to do in terms of that there's so much going on here in the state of Florida that you don't need to be weighing in on these national issues and getting publicity, certainly, getting attention for this. What do you make of some of those things, as well as what some would say is his basically unilaterally declaring that some certain laws in the state of Florida he will not abide by?
Yeah, and so this is part of what I mean. I mean, he what seems to motivate my opponent are two things: money and cheap headlines. And it's the last thing you want from the chief legal officer of the state of Florida. It seemed, it's constantly, frankly, just gimmicks is probably the nicest thing I could say about it. So you use one of the examples. I mean, something happens at a WNBA game and suddenly he's, jumping on social media saying that he's going to charge somebody with assault and battery. We don't even have a WNBA team here in Florida. I mean, he's talking about, going after the NFL on the Rooney Rule. And, the Rooney Rule hasn't worked. I mean, the Rooney Rule is trying to, deal with the lack of representation at upper levels in management and football teams. It hasn't really worked. And, if you can figure out who he's advocating for, it must be a multi-millionaire coach. Maybe they're not even a Floridian, but a coach that's not a woman or a person of color that didn't get a job. Who even knows who he's advocating for? But what he's definitely not doing is showing up at the Public Service Commission to try to protect us from rate increases from the utilities. He's cashing their checks. Same thing with the insurance company. I mean, he rolled out an endorsement from AIF. AIF is this Tallahassee entity that's basically a shill for utilities and insurance. I mean, I presume he knows that. He was very proud of their endorsement. I am proud that I am not endorsed. They know what they get if I'm the next attorney general. But it is, rather than do that stuff, he does this downright wacky, sometimes radical stuff that really has no place in the attorney general's office.
Again, we're speaking
I wanted to do a quick interjection there. Senator, this is Barry Edwards. Senator Rasan says hi and that he is glad to support you. What is it? I'm
Dear
a moderate.
friend, that's great to hear that. Thank you. Go ahead.
How is it that Attorney General is suing Target for business practices, the New York Times for business practices? I thought that Republicans and conservatives and pro-business people let businesses run. If you don't want to know what they do, then you sell their stock. It just seems you would not be doing wasting time.
Yeah. So and that's a great point. One of the things that I say is this chaotic corruption is not good for business, right? The environment that we should have here, comply with the law. You will definitely hear from us if you're exploiting people, making our state less dangerous. But if you are complying with federal discrimination law, you're doing your thing. We should leave you alone. If the governor and the attorney general disagree with how somebody is running their business, but it's not illegal and you're not exploiting anybody and you're not cheating, that's why we live in the United States of America, right? And so that will absolutely be my approach. And it will not be approach. It will be an approach of standing up for people and complying with the law. But it is not to go and bully businesses just because you don't agree with their hiring practices.
Again, we're speaking with Jose Javier Rodriguez, the Democratic nominee for Attorney General in Florida, the election in November 3rd, running against James Uthmeyer. One last question for you, JJR, and that is, let's just talk about, again, getting your message out. You talked about earlier here that you've been all around the state. You've been campaigning hard for hundreds of days here. It is a big state. You do need to get your message out. Money. David Jolly told us the other night, actually, he believes, he's being outspent 10-1 right now, and he says he's basically tied in the polls. We can question that. But nevertheless, he's competitive. We know what Angie Nixon did in terms of being outspent 16-1, or at least this past week.
Out fundraised.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Fundraised. So how does because I know I haven't looked at what your numbers are doing. I'm just gonna guess that James Uthmeyer is doing pretty well fundraising. So can you be successful without raising the same dollars that he can?
Yes, and I have been. So I served in the State House, State Senate, very competitive seats. I was preceded by political machines in both times, and I beat two political machines. Happens it was the same political machine twice. It was two brothers. So I've never been outworked, but I have always been outspent. And so, yes, and frankly, if you look at how corrupt he is, I guess my opponent probably should be outraising me, right? I mean, he's for sale and I'm not. And so we're raising the money that we need to fund our budget and make sure that we're able to get around the state, as I am, talking to all voters. And that's how we're going to win.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jose Javier Rodriguez, he will be on the ballot as the Democrat running for Attorney General. Great to talk to you. Hope to see you sometime when you're up here over the next couple of months. Best of luck to you in this campaign.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Again,
and of course, James Uthmeyer invited to come on.
Yeah. In fact, I should say that. And I've invited, sent an email this morning to his campaign manager, and this is definitely the skinny. We are about having equal time here for the candidates here. Would love to have James Uthmeyer on here. Would love to ask him some questions. I've had a chance once in a while when he's out in Tampa at press conferences. But we've done.
He seems to like taking questions from Tampeños. He stood up there at Tiger Bay.
Yeah. So that's why I think he might come on the show. Right. I would really like to hope so, because I think he's like Ron DeSantis, that he does welcome. They do think high of themselves and think like they can handle any questions, even from adversaries. Although I don't think I'm an adversary here at all. We're just wanting to get information.
He likes the combativeness.
Yeah,
he's like Jamie Grant. He likes to mix it up.
Oh, that's a name from the past.
That name in a while.
Yeah, and let's keep it that way. Again, if you're just tuning right now, it's the skinny here. It's almost 11:30 here. Hopefully, we'll be speaking in a few minutes here with Democratic Senate candidate Angie Nixon. We'll be waiting for her here. Before we do, Barry Edwards, let's talk about here in Hillsborough County. So we did have a Republican primary, of course. Mike Beltran defeated Kevin Steele. It wasn't close, right? It was, I think, a 14-point blowout, I'll say, for Hillsborough County former state representative Mike Beltran against former Pasco State Representative Kevin Steele. Kevin Steele, the night before the election, sent out a text saying that Donald Trump had endorsed him. Yes, Trump did in 2024.
Which was not true.
Yeah,
he endorsed him in the House 4
right.
years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, actually. That was where that was from. Right, but not in this election. He did not weigh in. There was all types of interesting things that we learned, of course, about Steele. Had to quit his seat there in Pasco County because he voted and moved into Hillsborough County, so he wasn't shown he was being a carpetbagger here in Hillsborough. What were your thoughts about how that went down?
So I looked at with my friend Nick, that you know, and we looked through all the states. One of the big things that I thought was interesting is normally people don't care if their congressman particularly lives in the district because the lines are so crazy now. But there was a difference, and we identified what we identified as a carpetbagger. A carpetbagger on the extreme would be anybody who, when you file for office, you move to the district. Like Josie Tomko was a state representative. So she says legally that she was living in Polk City running for a seat 60, 80 miles away. And I think that people across the state look in the seat that Byron Donalds was running in. The one resident of Lee County won, and the carpetbaggers all lost. So I think people said, we want people connected to our community. And I think that was one of the problems with Vindman, is he parachuted into Florida, whether you like him or not. He was a carpetbagger by definition. And I think that really hurt Steele, particularly people that are South Tampians, the Gandy, Kennedy, enclave, that are, disproportionately vote 3 times the rate that everybody else does. They did not like the fact that this guy moved here and he changed his residency, 2 weeks before the election?
Right.
I think that was a problem for him. And I think that Beltran was a known quantity. He's kind of a maverick. And I also think that in polling, like I polled Laura Leeds' district a couple times, there's 2 types of Republicans. There's the MAGAs and there's the establishment Republicans that are the Ronald Reagan, George Bushies. In Laura Leeds, it was 65, 70% establishment Republicans. I think the South Tampans are establishment Republicans, and I think they were more comfortable with Beltran than they were with somebody who was MAGA.
Right. Okay, Barry, we'll leave it there. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. Joining us right now live via Zoom is the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate in Florida, Jacksonville State Representative Angie Nixon. Rep. Nixon, welcome back to the Skinny.
Hey, I'm so happy to be back.
Great to have you here with us. First thing I want to ask you, and I did see Ashley Moody last night, your opponent in the race, and there's a couple things. I don't want to dwell too much about her, but I do want to ask you a couple things that she said. But another thing I want to say, because what we saw last night at this event in Tampa, Byron Donalds was there, Evan Power, the entire Republican establishment who's on the ticket in November were there, and they're really making it much about you, of course, being now the Senate nominee. And they're really tying into the fact that you are a quote-unquote member of the DSA, which you are, but only recently. And, I think for all of us who follow Florida politics know you were definitely a progressive on the left, for sure. Nobody's disputing that. But they're tying in those 3 letters to associate you with folks, of course, all around the country and some of the, very far extreme positions. And it seems like you are, they're trying to put you on defense because of this DSA affiliation, which you really don't have much of a backing with. Are you still okay with the fact that you just recently joined this group? Because it seems like that's what some people are just associating with you exclusively beyond anything else that you're representing.
So they were going to associate me with DSA or socialist or communism anyway. They were already doing that. And so the reason that I joined that organization was because they believe that we should have access to quality health care. They believe that we should have access to quality housing and fully funded public schools. And so they're already painting us that way anyway. And so what I would say is it's not necessarily putting me on the defensive. It's actually helping people improve my name ID, raise my name ID. Folks are learning me. I don't think it's even defining me because I'm kind of eating them up on these interviews. I know people are trying to box me in, but we are a Big Ten party as far as the Democratic Party. And all of the Republicans here, these MAGA Republicans that are in leadership, that are, running for higher offices, Byron Donalds, Ashley Moody, they don't have a leg to stand on because they are the reason that we are in this mess right now where people are working harder than ever and they're still struggling just to stay afloat. And so they are afraid of me. Ashley Moody voice gets high pitched and screechy when she starts talking about me. And that's because she's lying and she's nervous. She's nervous because we have all the receipts about how she allowed the misappropriation of funds that were supposed to go to the most medically needy children here in our state, and how she allowed it to be used to, defeat 2 ballot initiatives that were led by citizens. And then she was able to get this job as her reward. And then also the fact that she's friends with her and Donald Trump are friends with a former colleague of mine who just, it came out that he's a pedophile. Like, so it's like, if they
Mike
really
Caruso, you're talking about.
Exactly.
State Representative Mike Caruso. Yeah. So, excuse me. So again, we're speaking with Angie Nixon right now. Okay, a couple of things about Senator Moody, because again, she was at this event last night and talked to her afterwards. And I want to get your take on this. So she said that she blames the media for somehow paving for your victory. And I say blaming, and she said, I'm quoting here, she said, quote, the whole primary campaign, I would go around the state, talk to the media, and they would put whatever allegation Alexander Vidman had and called him the presumed nominee over and over and over again. And I would say to them, he has a primary. She says the nation would not be in shock over again, reading about Nick Moody, the nation would not be in shock if the media would have asked questions of the primary opponent, who was the, quote, socialist anti-American candidate. Florida deserved to know that. So I guess my question to you on that is, what is that? I guess what is she saying about the 705,000 people who voted for you because they somehow didn't know you well enough because the media went down and didn't report about you? What are your thoughts about that comment?
Ashley Moody is ridiculous. She's a liar. She protects pedophiles, and she also likes to basically steal our money. And so that is who she is. And I am not anti-American. She is in fact anti-American because she took money from Americans. She allowed money to be taken from kids. And so,
and you're talking about the Hope Florida thing there.
The Hope Florida scandal. And then she voted against extending the ACA subsidies so that people can actually die for their lack of health care. Ashley Moody is a horrible person. She's a horrible candidate. She very rarely goes out and talks to constituents. She very rarely goes out and talks to the news unless they are very friendly, the media. And so she's just not, she's afraid. She's afraid. And I am someone who's willing to have conversations and speak with people, even if I don't agree with them ideologically, because if I want to be someone's senator, then I need to listen to them, right? Everyone has good suggestions every now and then, right? And so I want to represent all people. Like, she's the reason that this country is broken. She's the reason that people are exploited at their jobs. She's the reason folks' healthcare has gone up. She is the reason people are feeling traumatized right now and feeling like it just costs too much money to be alive. Like, she is the reason. And she's protecting the pedophile in chief, Donald Trump, right? And she is one of the ones who, when he ran for office and lost in 2020, she filed a lawsuit saying that he actually won. So she's an election denier. She is Looney Tunes. And so now it's being brought up and she's afraid because I don't have a problem saying it.
One other thing that I want to, and we'll move on from Moody, but one of the things she said yesterday is that she says she's offended that you are quoting Assata Shakur, right? The former Black Panther member who was convicted in 1977 of the first-degree murder of New Jersey State Trooper Warner Forster during a shootout in the New Jersey Turnpike in 73. Of course, Assata Shakur broke out of prison, moved to Cuba, and just died less than a year ago. She said, quote, I don't know anybody in the state of Florida would ever dream that you would ever have a nominee who was quoting a cop killer as why you should support her. She goes and quotes a cop killer. And she goes on to, as the wife of a law enforcement officer, that shocks me to my core. What do you think about when she is offended by you quoting Assata Shakur?
I'm offended that she was friends with a colleague of mine that is just gotten charged and arrested for molesting his grandchild. I am offended that she is friends and always protecting a 34 count adjudicated rapist. I am offended that she is continually allowing these companies to cause us to have ridiculous healthcare prices and causing people to go bankrupt simply because they're trying to stay alive and have access to healthcare or go to the doctor. Ashley Moody needs to stick to the facts. She's just continually trying to demonize me. What has she done for our country and our state besides make it unaffordable?
Representative Nixon, if I could piggyback a little bit on that, thinking about how they're painting David Jolly as a radical, whatever they're going to do to you. And then also on this DSA thing, I mean, you don't agree with everything on that platform. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not against abolishing prisons, just getting the private prison system kind of reworked and eliminated. So you do have positions that don't necessarily, jive with the extreme.
And one of the attacks that they're doing on you, Representative, is that you want to defund the police. I can't find anything in your record where you've ever said you've never said that, have you?
I've never said that ever. What I have called for is a people's budget and a people's agenda, which is what I will continue to call for, because I believe that hardworking everyday people should get to shape what our communities look like and what our economies look like. I have never said that in my life, never. So she's a liar. They are lying, and it is so ridiculous how they are so afraid, because I have been able to get Republicans and independents to cross over in this primary to vote for me. They are afraid because there are people who sat on the sidelines for midterms that came out and voted for me. Granted, this was a low turnout midterm. However, I got people who've never voting for me.
Yeah,
and so they're nervous.
About that, Representative Nixon, 3.3 million NPAs registered in Florida in this 2026 cycle. You have to overcome probably 1.5 million votes. As Barry Edwards likes to say, people always go back home to their parties. You work hard. You were everywhere. I feel like I've talked to you 1,000 times already. How are you converting independents and even Republicans?
I'm going to interject. Angie Nixon is polling stronger against Ashley Moody than Vindman was. So she's a stronger candidate.
Yes. So what I'm doing, what am I doing? I'm going to talk to people. When I called for that ceasefire, I upset some members of the Jewish community. Guess what I did? When I ran for office, every week I had a different community on a Zoom, on a live with me, asking me questions, hard-hitting questions. I did it for the Jewish community. I did it for the Muslim community. I did it for the LGBTQ community. I did it for kids. I did it for Black men, Black women, women. I talk to people. And the problem is, you have politicians that are so uptight and just want to try to stick to these same talking points, and they're too afraid to go out and just be a normal person. No one wants to continue to elect people who live in this ivory tower. They want regular, everyday people who understand what it's like to struggle. I was a single mama for 12 years, right? I make $1 stretch, but we shouldn't have to do that. I know what it's like having to make a decision around, oh my gosh, my daughter needs her asthma pump, but I got to make sure to have enough money to feed her and keep a roof over our head. People are making decisions like that each and every day. And it is because Ashley Moody, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, Rick Scott, it is because they are in power, and they've been in power for so long. And so now people want something different. They are tired of the corruption. They're tired of the lies. I just cannot get over how this lady allowed $10 million that was supposed to go towards the most medically needy kids to be diverted. I am someone who had a child that was on kid care. I would not have been able to ensure that my child had the medicine that she needed. My daughter, we have had to stab her with the EpiPen, right? And I could not afford an EpiPen without having been on kid care at the time. And so for her to still allow $10 million to basically be stolen, she's disrespectful, and people are tired of that corruption, and that is resonating with people. This stuff does not have to be this way. People are tired, and when you look at all these news stories about parents that are taking their lives and parents that are taking the lives of their children and taking their lives because they're stressed out and they're losing their jobs. It's absolutely absurd. This is not normal. And I refuse to sit idly by and allow it to continue to happen. I don't care if they call me radical, extreme. There's nothing radical or extreme about me wanting people to have access to quality health care. There's nothing radical or extreme about me wanting to make sure there are fully funded public schools. And so if anything, she is a radical. She is an election denier. Ashley Moody is an apologist for pedophiles. She won't even, like, she was an attorney general. She could have went after some of these pedophiles that had ties to the Epstein files that lived in the state of Florida, and she chose not to do it. So she is extreme. She is a radical, and I'm not going to let her paint me that way.
If you were elected, question, I think more for the House of Representatives and not the U.S. Senate, but nevertheless, a question I'd like to hear your thoughts about. A lot of Democrats are saying if they do, in fact, take the House back in November, impeachment. Will they do that again against Donald Trump? Will they take that off the table? Some say that that's a political loser. They impeached Trump twice, and he came back and won election again in 2024. Others say maybe with just some of these committees that you can have some oversight over some of the things that have happened just in the last year and a half under the Trump administration.
Mitch, I would vote to remove him. Yes, they would vote to impeach him. I have no doubt I would vote to remove him. Mitch, this guy has called for the assassination of sitting Congress members. He's threatened Supreme Court justices. Like, he's a 34 count adjudicator. Like, come on, y'all. Like, what are we saying?
Okay,
like,
I wasn't sure about the Congress. I wasn't sure who he threatened for Congress.
He was calling for he was basically calling for the assassination of the Mark Kellys of the world and the folks that were saying, when they did that commercial about telling folks to do their jobs, and he's saying, oh, that's treason. They need to be hung or whatever.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, I know I think that's you have another minute here, or do you need to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to ask one question, and this will put it to bed about the Caruso. Would you support them seeking the death penalty against Mike Caruso?
I don't support the death penalty, period. I would rather him live in prison and have to deal with that for the rest of his life.
Yeah, so you voted against that, right? That was in the House a couple of years ago.
I did. Yeah. I want him to sit in prison and have to deal with that for the rest of his life and allow those prisoners to handle him.
Now, let's talk about one question, Barry, let me get in this, and that is, of course, one of the things that has been going on since late February, of course, is this war in Iran, right? And so, obviously, it's had worldwide effects, negative effects on the economy, gas prices here in America. We're on the issue of, well, I guess let's talk about that. I mean, obviously, I know you don't support that war effort. Is this where, what are your thoughts about that?
It needs to be wound down. We need to wind down that war. Like, that war was only allowing Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, and those defense contractors to get richer. Like, they literally had senior advisors that were warning them not to go into war. Like, we need to really, like, reassess all the wars that we try to go into. Like, it really is only benefiting defense contractors, and then they go in and they donate to people's campaigns. I'm not understanding how this is benefiting us in any way, shape, or form. It's causing our gas prices to go up. It's causing all of our goods to go up, our groceries to go up. And so it's not helpful. And it caused us lives. People lost their lives.
Yeah, indeed, that's happened right now. Another issue that we want to, now we talked, I know you've talked about this already in the campaign, so it's nothing new. I don't want to go back on the issue of supporting Israel. We did have a vote in the House of Representatives just a month or so ago where 100 Democrats voted against funding Israel there. That is an issue that you have also stated that you support, not funding them going forward.
That is correct. Yeah. And I mean, I just want to be clear, right? Like, what is happening is horrible, right? On both sides. And I believe Hamas needs to be held accountable for the atrocities that they committed on October 7th and those that they have continually done. But I also believe that Netanyahu is a war criminal, and him and his administration need to go. right? They are bombing hospitals and bombing kids and babies, and I'm not supportive of that. We should not be funding that. And also, when you think about it, like we're funding them around over $3 billion a year, just base level, and that country has access to universal health care as well as free college. We should have access to universal health care and free college as well.
If listeners are just tuning in right now, we're speaking with State Representative Angie Nixon, the newly minted Democratic Senate nominee candidate here in Florida. On the issue of, let's go back to domestically on immigration, on ICE. I know you do. Where are you at? I mean, do you want to eliminate ICE completely, but yet still have some type of enforcement actions against undocumented immigrants in this country? Where do you stand on that?
So we should go back to what we were doing before 9/11. ICE was only created to basically, I would say, to target and profile and go after the Muslim community. Like that's kind of where they came about, right? I am totally okay with abolishing ICE and actually allowing Border Patrol to be beefed up to make sure that they are protecting our borders. I am supportive, though, of comprehensive, compassionate, clear pathways to citizenship. We need to modernize the immigration system. There is such an enormous backlog. When I've talked to mixed status families, there was a young lady that I spoke to in South Florida the other day. Her entire family they're now naturalized citizens, and she is not, because she was Baker acted when she was 18. Like they don't want to allow her to become a naturalized citizen. And she came here as a very young girl. Like, what does that say about our country here? We have a problem with people who are struggling mentally. And like that illustrates alone, like her entire family are naturalized citizens. And that illustrates that the system is broken, right?
Do you support for criminal undocumented immigrants deporting those individuals?
I don't have a problem deporting folks who are criminals, no. But what we have seen is that they're not even deporting people like they say they're deporting them. They are detaining them. This is mass detention, and that's because it's profitable for them. Like one of the reasons why a lot of the family members and the attorneys don't know where the people are is because they don't want them to know, because they'll be able to try to get them out faster, but they want to make more money. These detention center contractors want to make more money. And when they make more money, they donate more money to the campaign coffers of the Donald Trumps of the world.
Did you visit Alligator Alcatraz?
I did. Yeah. Now, y'all know I was one of the first ones that I was a part of the Alligator Alcatraz 5 that went over there when they first opened it up, because we wanted to make sure that there was transparency and accountability for what they were doing. And then when they decided to allow us to come in for their completely sanitized tour, I was there. I was there when they rushed us out because they knew it was about to rain, and they knew, we heard from the detainees and their families that it was flooding, and that when it would flood in there because it was raining, feces would rise. They didn't want us to see all of that, so they rushed us out and said, "Oh, it was a lockdown happening. We got to get you out." It was so ridiculous. Look, all the through line to all of these issues right now are that the billionaire class and these super wealthy people are just trying to get richer, and they are the ones that are determining what these elected officials and the Republican parties are doing, and even some of the Democrats. And I have a problem with that. And they are scared. The status quo is scared of me coming to Washington, D.C., because they know not only am I going to hold Republicans accountable, I'm going to hold Democrats accountable, and I'm going to push back against this billionaire class and these corrupt corporations. I don't know if y'all know, but 88 companies last year made over $105 billion, and they paid zero in federal taxes. Meanwhile, a lady I talked to on one of my tour stops stated that she made $55,000 last year, and she is on a payment plan with the IRS. That is so disrespectful. That illustrates that the system is completely broken, and I am going to Washington, D.C. to fix it.
Rep. Nixon, one last question here. 74 days is a long time. I don't know how it's going to feel for you. I know we'll be busy covering this race, and I know you have a lot of work to do, but do you know what the first order of business is day one when you get to Washington, D.C.?
The first order of business on day one, because I appreciate you speaking that into existence. What it is going
Not
to be
intentionally, by the way. I am a neutral party here.
I know he's neutral. But I am going to file legislation to extend the ACA subsidies because Ashley Moody voted against that, and it knocked nearly 300,000 people off of the Affordable Care Act rolls here in this state, and it caused everyone on private insurance for their health insurance to skyrocket. And so I want to provide immediate relief on day one by doing that.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Jacksonville State House Representative Angie Nixon, Florida House Rep, I should say, now a candidate for Senate, U.S. Senate here in Florida. Rep Nixon, thank you so much for joining us here on The Skinny.
Great to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. There it is. 11:54 in morning here. You're just tuning in. That was, of course, Angie Nixon. Like I said at the beginning of the show, perhaps the most Googled person in America right now.
Barry, I want to ask Barry a question. How expensive would it have been to actually do that poll in that race, and why was it just so overlooked?
Yeah, we didn't have any Democratic polling, Barry.
I can tell you that, and I can't tell you how I got the source, but I can tell you that people that were like within the 5 or 6 inner circle of the Vindman campaign were telling professors that at the University of Florida that it was done, that they were going to win. Their predictions for the race of the top 2 or 3 people in the Vindman campaign were off by 27% because they were so overconfident they didn't want to spend $40,000.
So
he has 5 or 6 million, or I think he has $9 million left in his accounts. And we don't know how much he spent the last month, but we also don't know how much he raised in the last month. So, but he had $9 million to spend. He could, for 50 or 60,000, he could have had a gold standard poll and known that he was getting his ass whipped.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because, of course, you go back to 2018, both Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson left millions of dollars left in their account. And they were both, especially Gillum, really was just blasted for that. And here in this case, it was twice that much for Alex Vindman, who obviously ran a really horrible campaign and all of that. Okay, we just have a few minutes left here. Barry, you were involved. Again, we're talking now with Barry Edwards. Of course, we just finished that interview with Angie Nixon here. We wanted to go over a couple other races here. Although, I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to comment about what you heard from Angie Nixon there.
So, I think two things. One, she's not as radical as like an AOC defunding the police, but her anti-business and anti-corporatism and anti-wealth is just as extreme. And I don't think that's going to play. And I think her anti-Israel. Florida has a humongous Jewish population. We have Representative Frankel. We have Representative Wasserman Schultz. We have Representative Moskowitz. Yeah. You have 3 districts that are majority Jewish populations. I think that her anti-Israel position is going to destroy her amongst mainstream Democratic voters. You cannot win Florida statewide as a Democrat without the Jewish vote. And I think Jews are going to be very hesitant to vote for somebody who is as vocally as her.
I also think Barry Edwards right, and I think we've seen this again, if you want to trust the polls, this is a race, when people talk about the Democrats potentially taking back the U.S. Senate this session, this cycle, Florida has never, ever been mentioned in the mix. Right, we're hearing all over the place about Maine. We're hearing about Michigan, of course. All these other high-profile states. Florida was never in the mix. So Alex Vindman, even though he's more established and more centrist-leaning and could raise more money, nobody really, I don't believe, thinks that he could have defeated Ashley Moody this November.
You know how you can tell whether the parties are really supporting somebody? Are they spending money? If the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee thought Angie Nixon was viable, they would have had $1 million TV buy this week around the state to introduce her. They don't.
Right, but my question was about Vindman, though. Do you think that?
I think Vindman the same thing.
Yeah.
If they thought Vindman was competitive, they would have been pouring money into him, and they would have had professionals down here on his campaign saying, "Why don't we do a poll to see how we're doing against this woman who got arrested?" I think her big thing is the trajectory of that race changed when she got arrested for trespass by the governor. I think it made her a martyr.
And got more publicity.
And she got free earned media across the state, and they didn't care whether she was a DSA or a conservative. She stood up to Ron DeSantis, and if you're a Democrat, that's what they care about. And I think that's what propelled her. And then people figured out that she was African American, so the black community got behind her. That was so. in retrospect, whether it's good or bad, we'll find out against Ashley Moody, is the governor created her as the nominee by having her arrested.
That's a really interesting take. Okay, Barry, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you for calling in from across the pond. Really appreciate it. We'll look forward to talking to you when you get back here to the Tampa Bay area.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Hi, Ray. Bye.
Hey, Barry. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on.
Okay, we got about a minute here, Ray, to summarize here. We didn't get to talk about some of these other congressional races, but we do have 2 more months before the election here, and we're going to definitely go through some of those here.
Yeah, we didn't get to take too many calls either. It'll be interesting over the next...
I'm going to give you a quick... We have polling out.
Barry's always there in the corner.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Kathy Castor was up by 10 over Carpetbagger Steele.
Oh.
She's only up, but she's still up, which is a big deal, by 2 over Beltran.
Now what poll are you quoting here? What is this from? Your own polling?
Is this Facebook? What is this?
No, this was there was some polling done on that race, and so Beltran, because he's a local, is much more competitive.
Okay, well, that's fascinating because that is a Trump plus 10 district. So the fact that, again, not knowing the credibility of that poll, I mean, that's been the consensus is that Kathy Castor.
And I can tell you, and you know who I hang out with, the 2 races that the Republicans are worried about in the state, the most concerned is Castor winning. And second would be Jared Moskowitz.
Right, because those are 2 of the 4 seats that they thought that with the congressional redistricting they were going to take over from the Democrats. Okay, Barry.
All right,
okay,
Barry,
you can leave
you.
that.
You know, that was an interesting take, Mitch, on Down and Dirty, that Castor wasn't a hard worker. I don't know that I buy that, but we have approximately 70 days to dissect all this, and we surely will here on WMNF Tampa. My name is Ray Rowe. I'm the editor-in-chief at Creative Loafing Tampa Bay. On behalf of myself and my co-host, the Florida Phoenix senior writer Mitch Perry, Anthony Madura on the boards for us today, or on the phones, and Skip Sassy on the boards for us today on WMNF Tampa. I do see Joellen Schilke in Studio 1, purple, green, and pink lights tonight for art in your ear. I hope you have a really great Friday. Hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you at Tiger Bay. Are you going, Mitch?
Maybe.
Okay.